Yeah.
Alrighty, we are live, episode 11. Steve, I know we joked about it last time. I think I forget the statistic, but like vast majority of podcasts never get past episode 10. We've officially crossed that mark, and we're in episode 11
Fuck
territory.
yeah. I know. Here it is. This is fantastic. And we've got Ricardo on the line this morning for us. It's bright and early on the West Coast. So, yeah, welcome, Ricardo, to our 11th episode.
It's good to
Welcome.
be back. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna
Thanks
say
for having me.
you're the first ever guest that's joined the show twice now, and this will probably be a staple guest on the show here.
All right.
Hell yeah. Well, I know we wanted to bring Ricardo into the mix here because we wanted to talk specifically about like productivity hacks and just in general. I think we can all relate, like in the agency space here. It could get pretty hectic and chaotic, and I think like staying organized and staying on task there. There's some cool like hacks and productivity tips that we wanted to discuss here. I think before we wanted to get into that, we wanted to maybe like have a couple topics that we discuss here. I came across a really interesting story, kind of like a case study here that I would be curious to get your guys opinion on. So, just to kind of tee this up here, let me just do like a quick screen share so anybody watching can take a peek of what we're looking at here. So,
Hey, man, you got to
it's this
support those
brand.
5 watchers.
Exactly. Exactly. It's this brand here called Plunge. I feel like this is like blowing up. This space right now is like health and wellness space here, like in specific these days. Everybody's talking about cold plunge. Everybody's talking about sauna usage. Like I know like Rhonda Patrick is really big, Peter Tia, Huberman. Seems like that like podcast space is just blowing up in general. Now, their website, I think it looks sick. I know we were talking about before we started. They also have like some saunas here as well that just like look really, really like well designed as a product. The interesting kind of like tidbits from the story that I think are like worth sharing is these. So it's two founders. I forget their names. They essentially were running like deprivation tank like businesses, like those like float tanks. Have you guys ever done that before, by the
Yeah,
way? Have you ever done like a float tank?
I haven't.
I haven't. I heard a lot
Steve,
about it
It's on the
a couple
list
years
still, but I
ago.
haven't. Yeah.
I've done it before. It's weird. So like you're essentially like floating in like salt water. And
Hmm.
dude, by like 20, 30 minutes in, like you can't like feel your body anymore. So you're just kind of like it's like a mental thing. Very interesting experience. It's relaxing nonetheless. I would encourage you guys just like to give it a try. It's like a very relaxing experience there. But essentially, these two guys were running like that, and I think like maybe like a sauna business as well. COVID hits in 2020, and like their businesses just get destroyed because like they couldn't have people like actually come into their business anymore. They had to shut down. Sucks. Like clearly, like really, really sucks there. I don't know what the like inspiration led them to shifting into Plunge, which is essentially their first product that they were selling, where they created cold plunges. So they started their business in 2020, and I recently heard a business breakdown. This year, they are on track to cross 100 million in sales for cold plunges in 2023. So 3 years into the business, they're doing $100 million worth of business, which is insane growth if you think about it. Couple tidbits from their story that I thought were really interesting that we could maybe chat about is they essentially took the approach off the start when they were trying to build this business is using influencers. Specifically, Huberman was like one of the biggest ones. So like 2020 when Huberman started putting out contact, they essentially just like blew up his inbox to try and get in contact with him. And what they did was they started delivering cold plunges to all these different influencers in the space here. Huberman being one, like they gave Huberman like 5 different cold plunges. And as they were doing this process, they would document it on their story of like, hey, we're like rolling up to Huberman's place or Peter Tia's place or whatever. We're going to give them this plunge. And then they would then start speaking about it on their podcast of like, yeah, this is the brand that I've been using at home because I was just gifted a free one. They gave them an abundance of cold plunges so that Huberman started then giving it out to his close circle and his buddies, which all had to be, podcasters. So all of those guys started like chatting about them on their podcast. And that's what like really started the initial growth for this brand was them just giving product to like target demo who's going to speak about this on their podcast. and just spreading the word. I thought that immediately was fascinating of a strategy. If you're going to like launch a brand, of how you could use influencers and literally just give product away for free to get initial traction for the business. So like there's a couple other things, but wanted to at least like get your thoughts initially on like just general use of like influencers and like building a brand here.
Yeah, I'll jump in there first. Influencer marketing, I think it can be magical. It just got to be the right fit, right? The right product, the right audience, etc. And you just got to look at it as marketing, right? As far as your cost is what the product itself, you know, wholesale. And yeah, I can
100%.
see it work well, for it. I mean, it's definitely a tactic. I personally have not seen success with my clients doing any sort of influencer marketing, but I just don't think there's been the right setup, nor am I an expert at it. I've heard horror stories, but I think it's, people maybe trying to just jump on that trend. But yeah, I mean, obviously it worked for these guys.
Yeah, I think there's a myth out there that things like influence marketing, it's like a hack, right? It's not. You got to work your ass off to get this product out there to those influencers. And guess what? Your product has to be really good, right? Because the influence marketers, the influencers themselves, I mean, they're getting hit up from left and right. They have options, right? The ones that actually have an audience, the ones that will actually make a dent in your business, they don't have to promote your product. And the ones that are selling promotional, the story that you just shared, Trevor, like these guys, they're not going on a website looking for, who's going to talk about my cold plunge for $30. Oh, that's too expensive. I mean, they're definitely, it's a huge investment, right? They're making it a part of the story of their business that they're getting this product out there. And it's a really well-built, well-made product. I think in the plunge space, I'm not too, I can't say for sure, but my hunch is that it also works well because it seems like the type of product that has a huge markup, right? At the end of the day, the biggest expense here, I think, because I've done some research. I have the cheapest possible setup of a cold plunge in my house. The biggest expense is the chiller for me. The tub, I'd love to have a fancy tub. I mean, what the guys from Plunge do looks amazing, but it's, by the time you're done with it, it's almost a $10,000 purchase, right?
Yeah.
And so, I wonder what the actual cost of making that tub is. I don't know.
I think they're selling these things for like $5,500 to like $6,000 just to sell them.
Yeah.
So I'm on their site right now, and I don't know, the plunge all in is like $9,000. But dude, they do promote
there you go.
the buy now or split up their payments. As low as I think it says like $230 a month. So I wonder how many people are jumping on that train of like buying this thing. Yeah, dude, it is. It is buying a used car. And I mean, it's health and wellness. Can you get this for your HSA account? Like where can you get this write off? Potentially like, hey, is it a health benefit? But I'd be curious though, because I bet a big ticket purchase like this, a lot of people are probably doing that option, the finance. I mean, we talked about it last time, Trevor, and a couple times, just how that's just been huge, push. And dude, I see here, it says ships by late January. These guys are doing fine if it doesn't ship till late January. They probably actually have a product inventory problem if it doesn't ship till late January. So
that's wild.
Did they do nuts. Any sort of in addition to influencer marketing, did they do any traditional Facebook or Meta advertising? The only reason I ask is because some influencer marketers that I've talked to in the past, the content that they get from their influencers, from their more organic campaigns, that content that's developed, the videos, etc., are gold for paid ads, and using that kind of
100%
user-generated content. So I just wasn't sure if they had normal marketing to go along with it.
Dude, they said right now their bread and butter marketing is Facebook campaigns and Google campaigns. They said they explained publicly they're spending like around $800,000 a month on marketing, and that they're a 7x blended average for their ROAS across all campaigns. That I was like mind blown to hear, because dude, you got to think like e-commerce in general, like 7x like return on ad spend is legit, you know? So they said
There's
Facebook campaigns, Google
800,000
campaigns
times
were their
7.
main source. Like, how much is that on a monthly basis?
That's so. Am I doing the math right? Where I would just take that 800,000 times 7, and that's what their
Yeah.
potential profit. That's
What's that,
like
like
5.6
mil?
million. No, 5 points.
5.6
You missed
mil?
a couple mils, but yeah, 5.6 mil.
Wow. Dude, that is
A month
insane to think about just from your ads,
times
alone.
12. That's a 72. Yeah, $72 million or $67 million. Okay.
Insane.
And that's just
Yeah, they're on. I mean, they
Plunge.
literally said that they're going to do 100 mil plus this year in revenue from mainly this product. Crazy.
Were they on
I thought it
Shark
was just
Tank?
so
I'm looking
interesting
at
to
their
hear those
website too.
numbers.
Oh, they were on Shark Tank too.
Were they
So
really?
so we have worked with clients that were on Shark Tank, and God, it was years ago. But I remember looking at people's analytics because they would do re-airs of Shark Tank, and like, dude, you just see a natural spike of like organic and direct traffic coming into the website that was unexplained. Like it was just, like the most like influence from TV coming in directly. It was wild, and the sales just like peaked like crazy. So Shark Tank definitely, I've seen it happen live. Just crazy. Interesting.
Yeah,
That's so cool.
I've tried one of their tubs before, and it's amazing. Yeah.
Well, shout out Plunge.
It put my setup to shame. So you do get what you pay for.
I think.
I mean, how's that shipped to your house, man? Just it's a giant box. I mean, it's like a ceremony when it comes, probably, right? You're like, ooh, it's here.
Yeah, I'd be
Get
so
the
hyped.
candles out and the pain.
I'd be so hyped. I thought this was interesting to highlight because we talked a bunch on the show around like 0-click ads and like just like the importance of like brand building, as well as like diversifying some like ad dollars and like newsletters becoming more popular. I think this is a trend that's going to continue for years to come here.
Yeah.
I think like there's only going to be more prominent people in like this social media space and like podcast space. And dude, like Huberman's a great example. Like I heard a podcast with Rob Dyrdek. He was a founder of or an investor in Prometheus Protein. And he's like, dude, we made the highest quality protein on the market, extremely expensive, and we couldn't sell it. Like we could not get any sales. We started advertising on Huberman's podcast because we found out he was a user of the product, and it blew up and just completely took the brand to the next level. I think this is something interesting if you're like in the product space, considering like what your target demo is and like who you potentially could partner with. Because like I said, a lot of these people just have such strong brand and such strong trust from their platform.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. There's so much a built-in audience trust, right? I feel like with these new podcasts, I heard something recently too that Gen Zers, they are more likely to invest in kind of wellness related big expenses than buying a nicer car, than getting a bigger house. They're kind of trading like the where maybe my generation was more like my goal is I need to get into a house and then everything else can wait. And I'm not trying to generalize this. It's something I just recently read. A lot of Gen Zers are like, the house is out of reach, so I'm going to spend my money on stuff that I like, and they will invest in something like this. And one of the things the company, the Plunge guys are doing, I think, is it is a very crowded market. There are a ton of cold plunge companies out there. It's very trendy right now, even though it's something that's been around for ages. Partly because of Huberman Lab, Joe Rogan, all these guys talking about it, and they're positioning themselves as the standard, right? That's the high standards. Like you're serious about your plunge, you need to get one of these things, right? You don't want to bother with the middle ground, the inflatables, all the other stuff. You got to go for these guys. They're doing it right. So that's another thing, trying to establish, where you are in your vertical, and not try to cater to everybody.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Like
They're
if
doing a
you're
good
going to
job
be
at
more
that.
of a, yeah, like a higher end product, etc. What is it? Uggs is notorious, like the Uggs brand. They're notorious for never having a discount ever. They don't run promotions. So, but they're positioned as like the, you know, industry leader. So yeah, you have to kind of cater yourself as that luxury product. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think Ricardo, to your point about Gen Z and investing in health and wellness, I think this is just like a space here that's just going to continue to increase. I'm just really fascinating, like in this whole space here. One of the guys that I follow that I really like, he's the founder of Kettle and Fire, the bone broth company, Justin Mayers. He recently founded a new company called TrueMed, where essentially they're trying to um, take your HSA and FSA funds for you to then use to like purchase products. So for example, like in Plunge, you could use your FSA or HSA tax free to then purchase a cold plunge or purchase a sauna with like the connection to health and wellness. I think this space is like only going to
That's
grow,
awesome.
and thought this
Yeah.
was interesting to kind of highlight here.
And it's actually good for you, right? These are things that will benefit your health.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah, right. It's like it's got to be. I mean, goddamn, that's actually a really positive thing. It's like there's not necessarily a negative thing for cold plunge, right? Just don't stay in too long. That's actually gives me a little shine of hope for Gen Z as me being an older generation. It's like good on you, good on you.
Maybe that could be a good transition here, because I feel like I don't know if this is like a constant where like every generation says the next generation up is like lazy and like not as hardworking, and talking about Gen Z. I think this would be an interesting transition in like a productivity conversation here, as three people who are like been in the agency game here. I think we could all relate to being staffed on like 19 different projects and jumping from call to call and deliverable to deliverable and just like cranking things out and figuring out operations. I know we wanted to talk about like productivity hacks, how to stay organized, and just like some tips and tricks. So Ricardo, I don't know if you want to like kick us off. I have a couple like just general like thoughts and ideas for how to be more productive and like some things that like have worked for me. I'd be curious maybe if you want to like kick us off in terms of like what's worked for you, what would you recommend, what does your process look like, just general tips and tricks here.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much, right? It's hard to know exactly where to start. I think for me, things really started clicking when I started getting into goal setting. For me, um, that's when I started paying attention to how am I doing my work? What do I want to do? What am I working for? What's my objective here? What's my objective this week, this month, this quarter, this year, and so on and so forth. Um, and I think that helped me understand a little bit more about, why I'm doing the things I'm doing, what do I need to accomplish, and even going back to when I started in this industry as a client manager, I understood pretty quickly my goal is to be the most efficient client manager so that I can start overseeing the client managers. I can start really contributing to processes. I found that I liked doing that kind of stuff. So how do I become an efficient client manager? How do I manage more clients than everybody else? Not necessarily from a competitive standpoint, but just, I want to be that guy that when you ask, can you take another one? The answer is yes. And of course, there's a point that you hit that ceiling and you realize, okay, there is a limit to how much a person can do. But if you're really invested in finding out how you work and how you can do better, and you're taking that seriously, it's also pretty amazing how much you didn't think you could do and you can do, right? And do well. And there are a lot of tools that we can talk about when it comes to productivity. But for me, my whole kind of journey into that side of things started with this CD. Well, it wasn't even CD, man. It was a bunch of tapes, like cassette tapes. One of those like big like plastic binders that you open full of tapes called the Ultimate Goals Program from Brian Tracy, an old boss of mine, gifted it to me. And at the time, yeah, they were cassettes.
That is classic. So
that kind of
what do
dates
you
me
do?
a little
Just have
bit,
like
I guess.
you like listen to it like in your car cassette tape, or just like a little like a little like radio cassette thing?
Yeah, I mean, at the time, like I had a Walkman, and I put a
The
little cassette
Walkman,
tape on
that's
it
it.
and get my headphones on, and yeah,
Damn,
they
dude, you're
quickly
dating
switched to
yourself hard.
CDs. Yeah, I think I got the cassettes.
That's
I think I got the
incredible.
cassettes because it was like what he had laying around that he couldn't sell anymore, and it was old. And he's like, "Here, you can have this one." I think they had CDs by then, but yeah, and really like it's a huge program. It's got like I don't know how many tapes there was, like maybe 10 tapes, but like the one thing that I got out of it, that if I could only remember one thing, is write down your goals. Right, you gotta write it down. You got to get it out of here and put it on paper, and then
is that
things
like
flow out from
yearly
there.
goals? Is that like career goals? Like what kind of goals?
And that's where you can definitely get a lot more. You can get a lot more depth to that. But anything, right? You start by writing it down. So, gosh, I have a big project. I got to prepare a PowerPoint. Like I should write that down. Like, hey, I need a PowerPoint, and I need it done by Wednesday, right? So that right there, if it's Monday and I'm writing that down, that should help me already organize my next couple of days. If I need to have this done by Wednesday, I need to create time to work on this, and that starts helping you prioritize. It's very simple stuff, but it's amazing the kind of impact that it has. And I think because it's so simple, a lot of people kind of don't do it. Like, well, I know I need to get that done by Wednesday. I don't need to write it down. It's fine. And then it's Wednesday morning, and you're like, oh shit, that's right, I have to get that.
Yeah.
Well, if you had written it down, there's something that happens, and I'm sure one day we can have a neuroscientist come in and tell us. But to me, there's something that happens in the brain when you write it down. It just kind of records it. It's kind of putting a Post-it note up there, and it creates more of a sense of importance. Yeah, there you go.
Dude, I got mine.
Yeah.
Do this all the time.
Yeah.
That's a must.
So, to me, it starts there. And then there's all kinds of steps, right? All kinds of things that you can do to improve that and evolve it, upgrade it. I think for me, another thing that I found really useful was actually doing some of those personality tests and finding out like what kind of learner I am. How do I retain information better? Some people are more visual. Some people are more audio,
Okay.
right? Some people like to read and write. So we all kind of learn and retain information in different ways. Like I find that when I type information on a digital notepad, I don't retain it as well as when I write it down on pen and paper. When I write it down on pen and paper, I mean, I remember almost every word that I wrote down. And yeah, I can't explain why. It's just the way I work. But some folks might have that same effect with a different tool. So that's part of it too, right? Just kind of learning what works best for you. We're not all exactly the same. There are tools that work for all of us, but I think they all need a little tweak to better cater.
Interesting. So then, like, let's say, I don't know, maybe like a bit more tactical on like your day to day when you're working through certain tasks, etc. What kind of tools do you use? How do you structure your day? Steve, I definitely want to hear your thoughts here, and then I can chime in with some thoughts as well. But just like on a day to day basis, any tools that you would recommend, and any like how you structure things.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely walk through the tools that I use, but for me, I would even say, the tools that I use, there are many tools that kind of do the same thing, so you can find one that you like. But for me, the important things come down to the actions that you're taking. So creating a list, right? A checklist of action items that you need to do. I tend to have, my list has maybe one, max 3 things that I'll call like big things, right? These are big things that I need to do maybe this week. These are tasks that will require me to sit down for like a 2-3 hour block to get them done. These are not little things. I need to think it through. I need to maybe do a little research. Maybe there's some kind of steps to completing these things. And I kind of have to organize my week around these big things. And then there's the little tasks, right? There's I have to reply to this guy. I have to get back to them. I have to make this quick edit here. We have some calls. So those are more like my daily tasks, and I prioritize work based on, whatever criteria I'm using at the time. One of the things that I find super useful, again, I always go back to like simplicity. I've tried so many different systems and software and platform and notepad, notebooks. I mean, I can really geek out on that stuff. But I love using timers, right? So there's a method called the Pomodoro method. It's like Italian for tomato. And it basically, it's about having a timer, and you set the timer for like 25 minutes, and you work on this one task for 25 minutes. Once you complete it, you kind of check and see where you are. Sometimes you'll be surprised that you actually finished something you thought was going to take you an hour in 25 minutes. Sometimes you need a little bit more time, but you take a 5-minute break after that, and then you work on the next Pomodoro, the next 25-minute timer. And I actually have an app on my computer that I use for that. It's got a big timer on it, and it's a little silly, but I tell you, man, it works.
That's
it really
sick.
helps
I
me
haven't
get
heard
through
that before.
things. Yeah,
that's a great
I can
one.
share the link for it. Yeah. To me,
dude, I've worked with this guy for 15 years. I never knew he had a fucking Pomodoro timer. It's fantastic.
I didn't know it was called that when I first started using it, to be honest. I later found out, I was reading about, different methods of, focusing and completing tasks. And they had this whole write-up on Pomodoro. So I did some research, and I'm like, that's what I'm doing. I'm doing the Pomodoro. But I didn't really know that. But it helps you, because what can happen, it helps you actually, again, with procrastination too. Once you prioritize, you put it on the list, you start that timer, you just got to commit to doing it, right? You just got to do that. You just do it for 25 minutes. There's an end point coming up in 25 minutes. You can do 25 minutes of that. And oftentimes, once you crack into something that seemed overwhelming, it starts becoming more clear, right? It seemed like just so difficult that you didn't even know where to get started, but you spend a little bit of time on it, you crack into it. Now, all of a sudden, it's clear to you. Okay, I need to do steps 1, 2, 3, and we'll get through it,
Love that.
Yeah. So, that's what I keep kind of going back to, is this method of doing things. But as far as tools, yeah, we can talk about different tools, platforms, I don't know if you guys have had a discussion, at Collective 42, we use Basecamp. And yeah, I want to pause real quick in case you guys wanted to.
No, I can jump in here a little too, because I think before we talk about like specific tools, potentially, I'm picking up on a theme that's similar. And I think, everybody has a different way of organizing themselves. I realized that when I had employees underneath me coming on board, I was kind of surprised that maybe they didn't have a method to organization and, just how do I get my work done? And so I would share kind of what I did, and then, customize as you need, or, throw it out the window, but this is what I do. And I think, Ricardo, you touched based on like, prioritization is like a huge part. And there's the prioritization and execute. I think it's a Jocko Willink's mentality or lesson that he teaches that has been very helpful. I mean, even for us, I know when we have a tremendous amount of things to do for Collective 42, we write everything down, and then we figure out the priority of it, and then we figure out the execution of those items. So even for me, where my career has been mostly in production work, I'll get a bunch of different tasks from different areas. And so for me, it's all been about, prioritization and execution. How I actually do that, it's a to-do list. To-do list comes in all different forms. Originally it was pen and paper on a list and prioritization of that list. Nowadays I use more of a Canva. I think it's Canva, right? Is that how you pronounce it? View, where it's more cards
Kanban?
and Kanban. Yeah, excuse me, Kanban, where it's more columns, where it's like I have today's plan, which is like my today's to-do list to get done. Like that's my objective to get done today. And then I have another column called primary, which is like, hey, if I get today's stuff done, I could move that over and start working on the primary items. But primary is also there mentally for me to understand, like, these are issues that I need to get done most likely in this week. And then I've got a couple other columns, like things get shifted depending. And I just kind of take everything that I have, even personal stuff, and I throw it all in there to help organize my week itself. I remember employees being really overwhelmed when they have like 20 tasks, and great, they prioritize it, but then they're like, great, I have 20 tasks. I figured out what's 1 to 20 for the week. But then they're like, I just start. I'm like, well, you can. But then I also would tell them if needed, and I still do this sometimes, is dude, map your week out on Monday. Just literally have all the tasks you want to do on Monday. You get all your tasks that you want to do on Tuesday, and you'll see by Friday, you'll have all your tasks complete. So it kind of pulls that anxiety away of like 20 tasks to get done in a week. How am I going to get that all done? But if you visually can see all your tasks throughout the week, it takes away that anxiety. But what you'll find yourself doing is that you don't get paralysis of with the anxiety. So you actually do your work, and you'll find like midweek Wednesday, you're actually on Thursday's tasks potentially. So that's another thing that
100%, yeah,
has been helpful in that sense. One thing that I'll do now more if I have larger production tasks that need to get done. For example, we're launching a new website for a client, and we have to do a bunch of pre-production SEO work on there. And I really need to focus like 2 to 3 hour block of time. I'll literally just block it out in my calendar because I do have, good amount of meetings, but I will literally make a note and like block it in my calendar. And like, you got no excuses here, Steve. You got to sit down and do this work. So blocking out is helpful in that sense.
I feel like we all have like very, very similar tactics here in terms of prioritization. Were you going to hit on something else there, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'll throw out there too is when I look at like my workstation here, it's like I got a monitor in front of me here, I got another monitor over here, and I got a third monitor over there. Call me super nerdy, but like it's like my command and control Star Trek. Like, I'm on the bridge, and this is my section, right? And each window has kind of its own purpose and what it's supposed to do. Like my front monitor here has, emails, my calendar, etc. My left monitor is here with like ChatGPT sitting there. But then if I'm working on anything active, it's like my active productivity window. And then like my third window actually has my to-do list up and some other financial stuff for the business. That's kind of like a nice reminder kind of window. But like having this set up, it's like I have an active monitor, like production work. I have kind of email monitor, and then I have, nice to have reminder. And so it's all here visually in front of me. I can see everything. And so I can just work really quickly in between tasks and understanding it all. And that alone, I've noticed that, man, I've had employees, I'm like, dude, how many tabs do you have open? What window is for what? They're like just kind of clueless on, oh, this is over here now, this is over there now. And it gets like really confusing on where to start to work. So just like I guess the last thing I'll say is just being mindful of your organization of the windows, tabs, super, super important. Otherwise you're going to get lost. So I'll shut up now.
Love that. Dude, I feel like we all have pretty similar process in terms of like prioritizing lists. I think maybe if I could just like add a couple things to that, I would say I'm a huge Google Chrome guy, huge Google Chrome guy. And the reason is if you're like in an agency space and like you ever take on like freelance work or have like a white label service and you need to get onboarded, having different Chrome profiles, massive hack for staying organized. I don't know how people would do it otherwise of like saving stuff on your desktop. So I would say Google Chrome, if you don't use it, I would highly recommend to do that. And then within Chrome, more specifically, big folder guy. So my bookmarks, I'll always like remind myself before a client call to try and like hide my bookmarks so you don't see everything up there. But any tools that I use consistently, like Google Ads, Facebook ads, etc., everything is always bookmarked. I'll be on calls with people and I'll see them literally like Google Ads and then click to sign in. I'm like, that would drive me crazy. So bookmarking things, so you immediately go to like your tools that you use consistently, and then also bookmarking your client files. Every client that I'm on, I have a Google like doc here, so that no matter where I'm at, I could always sign into it. But I will take notes on every single call and bookmark it in that folder, so I never forget. Or if I jump from like one week to the next, oh, that week, like we talked about a couple of those topics. So like, it seems like I'm prepared if I didn't have time to prepare for that call. and just bookmarking their ads accounts, etc. I think bookmarks has really, really helped me in Google Chrome profiles just stay organized client to client, and like finding things efficiently. The other thing that I think has been like really helpful for me as well is like you guys hit on of like writing down tasks. I will in meetings or just in general, I will write something down on a piece of paper the night before. I will then map out my next day of like, here's like 3 things I have to get done. Like this is priority. Like I have to get those done the next day. And then I will put in like, hey, these are like other tasks. If I get to them, great. That would be like an added bonus. But I think prioritizing the day or night before, whenever it works for you, has made a huge difference for me to like then execute the next day. And then the last thing that I will say that's been a big game changer for me is Hermosi, Alex Hermosi. I don't know if you guys follow him. He said what he's done to be productive is he wakes up really early in the morning at like 5:30, and just goes right to his computer and just starts working on what was priority that he wrote down from the day before. That's what I've tried to do is like I will wake up early before any client calls, before any pings start coming through, and I will know this is what I need to get done. And then that way it's like 8, 9 o'clock in the morning and you've already knocked out like your bigger tasks and your bigger priorities before people start pinging you. And like, I'm sure you could relate to this, dude. At a certain point in the day, like mentally, you're just not as sharp and not as like motivated. So if you could first thing in the morning knock out like your like biggest things where you're gonna have to put a lot of mental focus into it, that's been super helpful for me.
That's awesome, Trevor. Actually, to piggyback on that, I feel like um, I 100% agree with you that your productivity does kind of start out up here peaked right when you wake up, and you just kind of slowly decreases during the day. So you need to take that into account when you organize your day, right? Days that I have just back to back to back to back morning phone calls, or other tasks that don't really require me to be at that peak mental state, I've basically, you know, today's kind of peak went unused, right? I used it with like lower priority stuff. And then
So
when I
true.
get to like that after lunch, I don't have that anymore, right? I'm not as alert. I'm not as quick. I'm not as bright. And now if I want to get into my really challenging stuff, it's a challenge. I've got that malaise. I'm like, oh, I don't have the energy for this. I need to
Yeah.
sit with this for 2 hours. If I do this, first thing and I block that time, so that little window that you experience, like that's gold, right? You need to reserve that for the big stuff, whether it's work related or even personal related. Maybe that's a little meditation time. Maybe that's a little reading. That's journaling. That's getting that big item out of your to-do list. Um, if you overlook
Man,
that
that's
and you constantly just like, oh, let's stack the morning with like internal meetings that we talk about the same thing over and over again, you just
Can't be doing
wasted the
that.
best time of your day to get stuff done,
Yeah.
right? Leave that stuff for the afternoon when everybody's like, yeah, okay, let's go down the list,
That's
So
really interesting because my most productive time for me, and I think it's personal, the way it's the actual like after lunch, afternoon. Give me the hours
oh, okay.
between 1 and 4. That's where I actually put my heavy production work time in because typically, maybe it's just because I've had so many meetings in the morning. Typically, like I'm organizing my day, getting things ready, doing damage control, getting back to emails that are critical, and then it's like, all right, I got my lunch in, maybe my middle of the day workout if I didn't get it done in the morning, and then I just lock down and put on some good music and just like crank out my task. It's in the afternoon, but I think to your point, regards like knowing when your golden hours are and just protecting them and nurturing it.
Yeah, you got to protect it for sure. Yeah. And then one more thing that I'll say about lists and stuff is, again, these are very simple concepts, but I'm amazed at how big of a difference they make and how little they're used. You'd assume that every task has a due date pretty much everywhere, and they don't. Even big organizations, they will have a huge scope of work deliverable lists in the fanciest software possible, but that little field that says due date is empty. Why are they not filling out the due date? And what happens is, there's no priority there, right? It's just in everybody's mind. It stresses you out, but you're also not compelled to get after it. There's no due date. Who knows when it's going to get done? And I understand some things are not due yet, but I believe you should still put a due date in it maybe like, it's December now, right? So maybe some of those items I'd put in, like, I want to look at that again at the end of January. So I'll put a due date for end of January. When it comes down to it, I may move it again, but it needs to have something. Otherwise, it gets lost.
Dude,
So
100%. If
that's
there's
it.
no due date, it gets forgotten, and it's due date. It doesn't have a due date. What do I work on it? It's like,
Yeah.
bug me that a due date pops up, and then so what? You have to move the due date. It's not that you failed. It's like it at least popped up as a reminder
Yeah.
to get the work done. Kick it down a couple weeks, and you're like, oh, dang, dude, I've been kicking this thing down for a couple of weeks. Why is that? Maybe I should act and get it done, or there's something else that's going. Or is it that even a priority of a task for the client? It's like maybe we just need to just close it out and move on.
Yeah. I'd rather have late, red due dates that are past due so I can see what's going on than not have due dates at all and just try to guess like, wow, I have a list of 100 things to do. Oh my gosh, I don't know. I don't even know which one to start with, Once you start putting those due dates in, you're like, tomorrow. Wait a minute. I can't do all of this tomorrow. Okay. The day, next day. And now you're like forecasting. Okay. Now you start prioritizing. Oh, this thing ended up on Friday. I need to get this done on Tuesday. Okay, move things around. And that's how kind of things can help you start prioritizing things. So,
yeah, I guess
that's
so.
What I've been. Oh, you got it.
Oh, go ahead, Trevor. No. You go ahead, man. Sorry, a little delay here.
I was just gonna say that's what I felt like has been really helpful for me. Like to your point in terms of due dates there. I feel like I do like my best work when I know like this has to be delivered tomorrow. Like this has to be delivered at this particular date. If
Deadlines.
not, you could kick that can down the road forever and delay and like I don't feel like doing this. When this thing has to get out the door, laser focused and just like actually going to get that thing done.
How much work? How efficient are you before a vacation? Right?
Yeah,
I mean,
dude,
you're getting it all done. You're getting it all done. It's not a problem, right? Like, and that's the other thing about due dates is you don't want to give yourself that much time. If you give yourself a due date for next week, it won't get done until next week. If it's tomorrow, it'll get done tomorrow, right? So, of course, you have to be realistic depending on the type of task you're working with. If it's something bigger, you got to break it down, right? But, keep them short, keep them close. You'll get through more quicker. And in fact, it seems like you're going to, I think that the assumption is that, well, then I'm not going to have a life. I'm just always going to be a due date. Actually, it creates a lot more freedom, because you actually get through your work.
It does. I literally just came across a quote this morning, and I might butcher it there, but it's failure to plan is planning to fail. So, like, essentially, if you don't plan and you don't prioritize, you're going to set yourself up for failure, and you're just not going to get things done that you're looking to. It 100% is a hack to then get more free time eventually there. I know we got to like run pretty soon here and wrap up. I did just want to ask you guys, because I feel like this is something that I could probably get better at is I have like my whole workstation set up. I'm good with tabs and everything. I think my phone though is one thing that like, do you guys keep your phone at your desk? And I feel like the thing that like hurts me is like in my position, Slack is huge and like responding to people is huge and responding to clients is big. I feel like sometimes that can take you out of a rhythm, take you out of a groove, but like there's a balance there of trying to be responsive. Do you ever just like throw your phone out of your room and like not keep it there when you know you got to get things done? Like, do you guys do anything along those lines?
I'll let Ricardo go first on this one.
I use focus mode on my phone and on my computer. So, I'll set like focus mode for 1 hour. If I'm into something that I don't want to get disturbed.
What is that?
It just quiets all the notifications. So you're going to quiet everything down for an hour. And it's true that, you may get a response saying, hey, Trevor, do you know this? I need a response right now. And you might miss that during that focus window, but that's okay, right? The line of work that we have, like you should be able to wait an hour to hear back from someone. And, you may have something in the back of your mind that like, if this person gets in touch with me, I do want to respond to them. So you keep an eye on that. But all of the other noise quiets down. So I use that. I actually used to have a plugin in my Chrome for Gmail that was like pause inbox, and I would do that with my email because I want to access my email. I want to access a client's email or something from before, but I don't want to be confronted with all the new emails I received in the last hour because they would distract me. So I'll pause my inbox for an hour. I'll work there because I do need to access stuff. And then after an hour, I unpause it and here are all the emails that came in the last hour.
Dude, I'm going to try the focus mode. I haven't tried that before. That's a really good pointer.
Yeah, so I'll jump in on my side on the phone stuff. So my phone's actually sitting right here, but I have it turned whatever notifications or whatever the volume or whatever. So I'm not getting like constant pings. I actually don't even know it's going off if there's like a text message or anything like that. But with like my applications like Slack or email on my phone, well, I guess the only thing that pushes through is Slack, but it's not a notification. All it is just the icon pops up that I have an unread notification. I'll see it on my desktop either way. That kind of gets a little distracting sometimes. But like my phone, like I'm very, very selective on what gets pushed to me and notifies me. Like a text message, sure, because it could be personal.
Yeah.
And a phone call is about anything that will come through. But an email, no. That's me going in and looking at the email through my phone. And same thing with Slack. I'll just have the little bit of the bead notification that's on the badge itself. So my phone's really not that big of a distraction. Sometimes I'll look back and I'm like, shit, I've got a bunch of text messages from people, but it didn't distract me, which is fine. But I will say with like Slack on my desktop, that gets a little distracting where I could probably use the snooze mode more, but that's why I have the other window. Like I'm on a Mac, so like my icons are at the bottom on my main screen when I'm looking straight. But if I'm looking to my left working on production work, I don't see that little notification. And so it just doesn't distract me at all. So it's like literally this is like my production portal. And then it's like, maybe I'll shift over and I'll see and I'll have my emails and I'll have my Slack notifications. So that's where the phone and notifications as far as mine.
And I forgot to even mention that because I've had it turned off for so long. I don't do push and I don't have even badges on my apps on my phone because the badges stress me out. So I only see it when I open it. And I've had it like that for so long that I forgot that it was like a customization I made.
Dude, I might have to do
that. Dude, like email, like you should never have push notification for your email. Like never, ever do that. You need to be in the mindset where you are ready to look at your work emails or even personal emails. You have that control. Otherwise, you're just going to be constantly distracted with a ding, 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 and you're like stressed out. No way.
Dude, that's what happens to me, man. I got to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, just try it out.
Cut it down on your dude. Even all your social posts too. Any of your social stuff. Like no, You need to be in that mindset. You know you're going down, and you're looking at it. So yeah, just don't do it.
I love that. All right, I know you guys got to hop to a call here. Ricardo, thank you for joining, dude. This was sick. I think we should do. I like this format here where it wasn't necessarily like all industry updates and stuff. Maybe we could like think about some other, I don't know, like stuff that we do on the day-to-day basis, whether like putting together files or like how to structure slides, stuff like that, where it's like a little bit more like tactical on the day-to-day. I think that's like an interesting little switch up here. So, dude, I really like this show, and Ricardo, we're definitely going to bring you back on.
Super fun. Thanks for having me. Yeah, anytime.
Alrighty, folks.
Right on.
Episode 11 in the books.
All right, let's go. Thanks, guys. Have an awesome weekend, and thanks for